This week on London Real, Bruce Parry of the BBC series Tribe.
I don't fancy my odds, really. I'm just going to visit these extraordinary people who really see the world in a different way and really trying to engage with them in a way that I've never done before. We see everything as disconnected, whereas a lot of the rest of the world sees us all as intrinsically connected, not only physically but also through our mental states. You know, I'm riddled with my own problems, my own insecurities, my own traumas, my own ego that's getting in the way, so I'm going through my own healing as I go.
London Real presents Bruce Parry, Quest.
When you try it, something really special happens and magic comes back.
Welcome back to London Real. I am Brian Rose at one of London's most historic monuments, known as the Tower Bridge. Yes, I am here. The gates have just opened. It's pretty exciting stuff. I've got the London skyline behind me. We've got the walkie-talkie here. We've got the cheese grater here, and of course the gherkin behind me. We are on Tower Bridge. I'll be rolling through. The gates just went up a few minutes ago, so it's quite tourist central here. This week on the show we have Mr. Bruce Parry, another icon in London, much like this bridge. And you might remember Bruce from the BBC documentary Tribe, when he first hit the scene some 8 years ago, and you saw Bruce going to Africa and hanging out with a lot of the locals and doing a lot of the things they did. He went on to do something called Amazon and then Arctic, which were other shows that he produced. And for the last 2 years, he's been making a documentary called Quest, which is basically documenting his own quest and his own life. And it was fascinating to sit down with him for an hour and a half about a week ago and hear about what's been going on in his life and how he's been trying to find himself and define himself in kind of a different way of looking at the people that he used to cover. He used to go look at the tribes and point out the things about them that was interesting, but he never used to kind of think the way they did and be part of the land and be part of his own consciousness the way that he thinks that they do. And that's what this new movie's all about. He had just come back into London, hadn't had a mobile in a while, hadn't even wore shoes in a while, and it was great to get Bruce's perspective on his life. And I can't wait to see this movie. I know he was meeting with Damien Hirst a few days later, who had donated a bunch of pieces of art in order to finance the movie, and that should be coming out maybe in about a year. And it was just a real pleasure to have him on. I mean, let's be honest, this guy was he was drinking ayahuasca back in the day before we ever tried that on London Real. And so you know, just to sit down with Bruce was fantastic. We had Timothy Sheaf on there, the free runner, and those two got on like a house on fire as usual. So it was a special moment, and I really think you'll enjoy this episode of London Real. We are sponsored, as I walk over the center of the the Tower Bridge, by the guys at X-Brain, and they have a new product called Way Better Protein Powder. I'm loving it. It is made from cows that are grass-fed. It's fully organic. They're free range. It's sweetened with stevia. I'm having it about 4 times a week, and it sits really great in my belly. And I think it's just really necessary. If you're training hard or lifting or anything like that, you're going to need to get some whey protein in you, in my opinion. And they have great stuff. I've tried all 4 flavors now: strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, and banana, and they're great. They're offering 15% off to London Reelers. So if you use the code London Real, click on the link below or go to xbrain.co.uk. You get 15% off any of those products, and it's all good. They support the show. They keep it free, so support them. I would appreciate. It's been a crazy week as usual at London Real. We've got next week MI5 agent Annie Michon, who turned whistleblower about 7 years ago maybe even 10 years ago, and exposed a lot of things going on here in British intelligence that she didn't like. And she's very well spoken. She's going to be in Adam Scorgi's new movie called The Culture High, and it was fantastic having her here. She had a lot of insights. She said once Edward Snowden hit, her phone was ringing off the hook because she was someone that had been talking about basically protecting our information and being conscious of who's watching everything you send and our right to privacy, and I do think it's a fundamental right. So she'll be coming up next week. I think you'll enjoy her a lot. Behind me we have the mayor of London's office, and behind that we've got the Shard, tallest structure in Western Europe, and just always liking to give you a little geography lesson here in London. Walking out the end of Tower Bridge, sometimes called London Bridge. I think an American bought this one time thinking he was getting this bridge, but he got the nasty looking one instead. Our final sponsor are the guys at Bulletproof, and if you don't know what that is, it's a coffee that is free or very low in molds and toxins, so it doesn't make you feel horrible after you have that cup of coffee. That might have happened if you would have just grabbed one at your local place. And then what I do is I mix it with grass-fed butter and brain octane oil, which is like 15 times the amount of the good stuff you get in coconut oil. And you blend all that together. I was serving it this week to Kelly Starrett, who is a athletic and movement specialist. You know, he loves it. Scorgi loved it. It's really, it's quite honestly changed my diet and my life in the last 4 months. So I highly recommend you checking Bulletproof out. Again, they keep this show running. So if you ever want to support the show or you love what we're doing, go check them out, buy some coffee. If you're in Europe, you can get that at Xbrain. And if you're in the States, go to upgradedself.com and check out Dave Asprey. He's got a great blog at bulletproofexec.com, and you can get more info. And that's it. I'm now on the South Bank, which is where Shakespeare's Old Globe Theater used to be, because they used to keep all the nonsense on the South and all the vice and all the good stuff there on the North, where the walled city of London was. But I'm going to sign out. As you know, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. If you got any suggestions for guests, just keep them coming. And if you want to help out, I'm at brian@londonreal.tv. We got some more exciting things coming up. So that's it. That's me signing off. And now I leave you with a really fascinating insight into the brain of a guy that really pushed television and documenting style past its limits back in the day. He really broke new ground, and he's a fascinating individual, and I can't wait to see his new movie, Quest. Now I leave you, Mr. Bruce Parry. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. We are sponsored today by Xbrain. They're the makers of Way Better protein powder. It's organic, made from free-range, grass-fed, hormone-free cows, which we were talking about earlier, and sweetened with stevia. If you want to get some of that, you can go to xbrain.co.uk, and there's 15% off for London Realers. Use the code LondonReal. Also, we're sponsored by Bulletproof Coffee, which is basically a mold and toxin-free coffee. You mix it with grass-fed butter and MCT oil, and it's like this kind of like a Tibetan like yak tea that you have in the morning. And I drink it, and I don't eat in the morning, and I just eat like a late lunch. So check it out. If we can find a way for you to try it without grass-fed butter, you might try it, right?
Yeah,
you're always open to everything.
I know,
right?
but I tried raw goat's milk recently in
Really?
Pennsylvania. It was some Amish goat's milk, and I want to like try and do stuff. I'm trying to be raw, and I know the goat was probably looked after by the Amish pretty well, so I tried it.
All right, so you're game.
Yeah, I'm game.
You're open. All right.
How about experiences? Yeah,
Okay.
and no one's cost. That's it.
All right, so you're a vegan that will experiment a little.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, you can get Bulletproof at Xbrain, or you can go to upgradedself.com in the US and pick that up. I just want to say thanks to Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof executive. Now on to the show. My co-host today is award-winning free runner Timothy Sheaf, who hosts the Flow Show on YouTube, most recently reporting from a hot tub in Santorini.
Yes.
I mean, really.
I've got a pretty blessed life.
I mean, you were hanging out in the hot tub and doing
Yeah,
your show,
yeah.
and yeah, you look pretty chilled.
I was really chill.
But I mean, seriously.
High on life, yeah.
Yeah, you were very relaxed. You would have seen Timothy on MTV. He does videos with the famous stuntman Damian Walters.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing rugby commercials for O2.
Yeah. Top Gear.
Yeah,
did
Top
recently.
Gear. Jamie Oliver. You're more famous than Bruce and I combined, probably.
Definitely not.
I don't know. Okay. You also have these great videos called Life in a Handstand. You should check them out. It's like Life in a Handstand. And the latest one, Love in a Handstand.
You saw that?
I'm feeling that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there's a female handstander involved.
I went on a date, yeah.
Oh yeah, and on a handstand. So, anyways, thanks for being here. It's been too long, dude.
Thank you, and what an episode to invite me to.
I know, right?
This is how fate works, right?
Dude, you always hit like the top people.
I'm just rolling with life, and it works out, man. This guy's been my hero.
I want to be you.
Time.
I want to be you for these opportunities. Anyways, our guest today is Mr. Bruce Parry, who is an award-winning documentarian, author, indigenous rights advocate, explorer, and former Royal Marines Commando officer. You will definitely know him from his BBC documentary work on his various series, including Tribe, Amazon, Arctic, where you completely immerse yourself in these indigenous cultures. You eat their food, you drink their dodgy water. You even experiment with some of their psychedelics, like one of the original guys doing that. For the past year, you've been filming a documentary called Quest, which I think is quite literally that, your quest.
Exactly that.
And I think it's suspiciously therapeutic in nature, which is much like London Real. This is like therapy that I do every week for myself. You guys just have to watch, because I'm a completely different person in the last 2 years just from doing this. Wow. So I'm going to ask you about that. But it's just a real honor having you. Welcome to London Real.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you both.
Absolute honor, man.
Proper.
Tribe is one of the best things the BBC has ever done, and
wow.
And you're the main head of that. Like the commitment to, no, honestly, the immersionism and the open-mindedness it took to do that, and like 6-7 years ago as well, man. Like I show that to a lot of people at home. I bang it on, like, yeah.
Wow, that's really sweet. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, well, what a privilege. Can you imagine? I mean, to be able to go around the world and meet those extraordinary people.
Yeah.
How that might affect your life, you know, to see our world through the prism of all these different.
But not just to see it, you immerse yourself. Like there's the one crocodile episode where you're hunting crocodiles at night. That looked like that boat was tiny, you could have just fallen out. And was that scary? Was that?
Yeah, but you know, all of these times, you're with the experts. You know, you're with the experts. They hold your hand, and you're like, well, they wouldn't be doing it unless. I mean, you have to kind of believe
so you
it.
just trust.
You trust.
And you're
trust.
in a strange environment.
But they exude their, you know, they want to look after you. They just exude that, and they wouldn't take you into a place that is going to really be detrimental or dangerous. So, you know, I just trust.
A lot of faith.
Yeah. But if you imagine one of those guys came to the city, they'd be terrified. You just hold their hand, cross the road, you come with wait till the light goes green, you cross the road, and da-da-da.
That's true.
And that's all it is. It's like, I'm in their environment, they'll look after me. It looks like shit everywhere, but actually...
But you look at the body language of some of these people, like I watched that episode, I watched the famous cattle jumping episode you were in, but like you can tell these guys they're really looking out for you. Yeah. You know, and you were saying you didn't learn the language of these tribes, but you're saying just eating with them, helping out to carry something or whatever. You said just bonded you.
Actually, yeah. The times that I connect the strongest are when there's no interpreter and it's just me and them, and we're doing something. You know, if I have to talk abstract things, then we need an interpreter. But if I'm out chopping a tree down or going hunting or whatever, then me and the other person, then we really connect, because I'm just, you know, you're doing stuff. And that makes it really
language
easy.
Causes problems in the world, basically.
That's
there would be a lot more.
That's like a lesson to us all.
Yeah.
Because like, especially guys, when you bond with guys, I think they want to see what you're made of. Like, who's this funny looking white dude in my country? And once they see you can dish, you know, you can take what they dish out and you can pitch in, and they're like, oh, he's cool.
And you're willing to serve as well. Like you go in there with the attitude, how can I help you guys?
We just go in as a person who just wants to be a nice guest. You know, it's like you're looking around. The mother's going to go and get the water. It's like, what am I going to do? Sit here and wait till she gets back with the water? No, I'll go and give her a hand. And it's as simple as that. It really is as simple as that. I've got nothing else to do other than be a good guest.
Do you think we'd do that if we didn't have phones to look on Facebook these days? Because I really think that's a big issue and a problem, is that we'll be with someone and there'll be a minute when nothing's happening, so we'll go to our phone instead of taking the opportunity to either come up with the next thing you're going to do or help them with the task they're doing. If they're washing the pots, you might just sit there and instead of helping them wash the pots. Exactly like that, I think.
I can't stand
We're
that.
really lost right now.
If I'm with someone and they're on their phone, like I lose it. I want to walk away.
I got rid of my phone, which is a privilege. I mean, I know it's very hard
to have a phone. You mean, or to
get rid of it is a privilege.
Oh, really?
Well, have one in the first place.
But you got it, yeah, okay.
Because
like
I was able
circle.
to. Yeah.
Some people, it's a privilege.
I was hoping you'd mean that way around. That's cool.
Yeah, well, both of them are. I mean, not people in the world don't have phones.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a privilege to have one, but it's a greater privilege to be able to be in a position to let go of it and it was such a release. It's beautiful. Wow. I mean, the production company keep trying to give me new ones because they can't find me ever, but
That's
it's really beautiful.
And you're okay. You've normalized without it.
Yeah, of course you miss out on some stuff. You know, there are moments. I've just come back to the UK. I've been away for 6 months, and I kind of quite like to connect with a few people. And I'm like, I can't. You know, so so I've got a tablet. I'm using an iPad now a bit more than I would normally. But I look forward to a time in the future where I'm going to be using that sort of social media less and being in a community more, and I think that's kind of where my direction's going.
I catch myself doing that sometimes when I'm alone, and then I'm constantly, okay, how am I going to entertain myself with my electronic device? And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, try to slow it down, but it's so hard.
And then an hour later, you come off Facebook and you're like, I don't feel great about
myself.
that.
No,
yeah.
you don't. You don't remember a single thing you'd learned or looked at, and then it's and you could have been meditating or stretching or something, which would have taken a little effort to begin, but once you started it, you would get a lot more reward.
But I found that, I found that I did have that sort of personality that was just sitting back and watching TV, just flicking channels.
I think we all have that.
So I just got the best thing for me,
get rid of
the TV. Then I was like on the phone too much. You know, I would be one of those people who would be checking out Facebook, like, what am I doing? This is like not making me happy. Get rid. I'm not very good actually finding the middle path.
Self-discipline.
Not right. I mean, I will be able to bring it back at some stage, I'm sure. But for me to go cold turkey is the only way to really properly start.
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to do that, I think. Do you like when people come up like Tim just did and say, I remember you from Tribe and all that stuff? Or do you kind of want to move on from that? Or are you happy to be recognized for that?
I've been away for 6 months and I just come back to London and I completely forget that some people actually know who I am. And so I'm on the tube and people are smiling or winking or saying hello, I like your show. And it's the greatest joy. I mean, imagine you're just walking down the street and someone comes and says, by the way, I really like what you do. And thank you. And it's like, wow.
But your show was so pure that it's only going to get the kind of nice people that will do that. You're not going to get like the idiots that are on Geordie Shore who watch it or something like. No offense to them, but do you know what I mean? You're not going to get the viewers of that to come up and be like, "Oh, hey, it's Brucey."
I can't really comment on that. But all I know is that the reaction I do get is beautiful, and so for me, it's like so humbling, and I walk away going, "Wow, I must be the luckiest guy." I mean, it just puts a spring in your step. It's like, thank you to everything. This is such a gift, and it's not because I just suddenly feel better because some dude's come up and told me I'm great. It's like, that's just really nice to have that appreciation.
People really know you. Like, I drop your name and they're like, yeah, I know that guy. Or they remember, I think an image is so powerful. They remember an image of you with, paint on your face or something. And it's just something that at the time was really groundbreaking and maybe is still. But something about your personality that came across that, you are really well known. And we've had famous people on the show. When I mention your name, people that are like, oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah,
but I haven't been on the box for a while. It's been a few years.
Yeah,
and you can really tell when you've got something that's recently been out. Obviously, people know your name. Nowadays, it's people like, you work at so and so, or you're from Wigan, or whatever it is, and then they're trying to figure it out how they know me. They don't actually know me at all, other than on the television. But it's it's a privilege. It's a privilege. I'm very grateful for all the positive things that have come from that.
So you parted ways with the BBC in 2010, is that right?
I hope I haven't burnt my bridges yet.
Okay.
Although I sometimes wonder if my departure, the period of time that I've been away, is a bit...
Because that's 3 years ago. It's a while.
3 or 4, yeah.
4, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been trading emails with you for a year or something, back and forth. And Bruce is always like, I'm off to Borneo for 4 months. And I'm like, who is this guy? I mean, it's not like he's off for a few weeks to shoot I didn't know that you were working on Quest. And I was like, Jesus, this guy's really hardcore. Because you're like, I'll be gone for 6 months, or I'll be gone for this extended period of time.
Yeah, this trip, I've been away... Well, I left on 21st December last year, 2012.
Winter solstice.
Exactly, and what is it now? June,
September,
August? I don't know.
The 9 months. You don't know. He didn't know what day it was when he was signing the release.
And I'm not even meant to be here. I was supposed to be away till October, November. So
okay, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Quest. You've been filming it now for 9 months. I think you got another 6 months or a year.
It's possible.
You're going to film. I know a few things about it, and I'll just drop them, and you can tell me. You were in Borneo. I know you went back to the Amazon. I think you had another ayahuasca experience. I know this film is in part, I think, financed by Damien Hirst and some of his artworks that he's donating to people who have helped produce it. And when I hear about everything you're doing, first of me thinks, this is so long, why not a TV series? And I was wondering if you could tell us what you're doing, and why is this a feature film and not a series?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know where you got all that info from, but that's really good.
Is it?
Yeah, we've. It's not a TV series because what we're talking about is kind of relatively deep and philosophical and complex, and I think that it needs to be delivered in one chunk.
Okay.
It's like we want people to come on the journey with me, and it's not the sort of thing you want to come back next week. It's like, come, sit and suspend belief and come on that journey. And we're going to challenge perhaps some of our preconceptions and our perspectives and, look at ourselves a little bit. But we want to make that as comfortable and as non-threatening as possible, but give someone an experience that perhaps they come out the other side going, well, thank you. I've had a sensation. I've also had an understanding of what you're saying. And I'm going to go away and think about that, and maybe think about myself, think about society. And I think that if we split that into chunks, we wouldn't be able to get that same sensory experience that we're hoping to get in one hit.
Okay.
It's like a pill.
Smart. Everyone
Like a pill.
Everyone likes watching documentaries now with Netflix and things like that.
Yeah.
It's really cool. You can just sit down, bang on a documentary, and then you're fully immersed in this one story. And
Plus,
so
you're
it would
going
be
for a
like
different
that.
message that you're saying the television network wouldn't necessarily even want to play this.
No, I think that there's a possibility. Not that we're challenging or threatening overtly television networks. It's more that it's philosophical, and it is talking about society, and it is questioning the institution and the status quo to some degree. So that might not be something that necessarily wants to be on the normal networks, but it's not aggressive. It's all full of love, and it's just asking us to try on a new perspective, to try on a new way of looking at ourselves and our world.
And so, what do? You go into different countries? Are you going to the source of problems? You think, or like?
Well, yeah, we're going all over the place.
How do you choose these destinations?
How on earth?
Is it part of a narrative, or are you discovering this as you go along?
We're realizing that the reason that people haven't tried to make a film like this before is for very good reason. It's like nearly impossible. We're filming the invisible. We're sort of asking the impossible to answer. We've tackled something really very big and deep. And in a way, it's my own personal journey too. I'm going back to some of the indigenous groups that I've lived with to take a slightly deeper look. The work that I did before was about how people behaved and what they did.
Right.
It's kind of like us from the outside kind of looking at them. We'd ask them questions what they're up to, but it was always about that, not really about how they felt and how they experienced life and what they thought of us and how they perceived reality and, their spiritual life and all that. I mean, we pay lip service to it, but I'm thinking that actually within some of these indigenous groups, there's some really special perspectives of life
And truths, you think?
Yeah, that perhaps that offer us an insight into maybe something that we overlook in our society, some disconnection that we have, some just other ways of being in the world that might be of use, because we're homogenizing the whole world. Everyone's coming out now and watching TV and drinking Coke, and it takes no time for an indigenous group to suddenly turn its back on its old ways and be a part of our society. It's so prevalent and strong. And
You noticed that
forceful.
was in some of the documentaries. Some of the younger people move more to the western towns and they start watching MTV and they don't want to come home to the parents, and the parents are upset. But you have to lose yourself to find yourself. So I think that's
true,
what we're
but-
doing right now. We're in the stage of the world is losing ourselves before we find it again, looking to the things you're doing, I guess, helping.
Yeah, I totally agree. And
Can I quote you? Can I read something that
Yeah.
you said? You said there were moments when I genuinely felt part of something else, something bigger, connected to the trees, the mountains, and the people. I don't know if you were describing something that you experienced on Tribe or one of your other adventures, but it sounds like you're trying to find this indescribable, I don't know.
Oneness.
well, yeah, when you when you look at the commonalities of what a number of the indigenous groups think, and also what we're hearing from the East, and these notions of a interconnected universe, even that some of our astrophysics is talking about, and we look at evolutionary biology or neurology and all these areas of science, actually there does seem to be an emerging picture. I know your program has talked about this very thing a number of times. It's like, we see everything as disconnected, whereas a lot of the rest of the world sees us all as intrinsically connected, not only physically but also through our mental states. And although that seems so hard to understand, when you actually try and engage with that, when you try and feel it, when you try and look at the world through those eyes, something very interesting happens. Magic comes back. Mm-hmm. Healing comes back. Sensations come back that perhaps we had lost or overlooked. And I just think that's a really interesting way of exploring. Because in my previous career, I was an explorer, but I wasn't really. I always maintained the prism of my own scientific background. I never really gave credence to some of the views that I was listening to.
Right.
People would talk about all of this stuff, and I would just go,
like the tribes would.
Yeah, and I'd be like, yeah, I don't believe that.
And that was also how people related to it, because they're like, I'm like Bruce, and I'm watching. I believe in my world, and I'm observing these people from him.
And so I maintained a very materialistic scientific perspective.
In the physical world.
Yeah, everything has to be measured. If it can't be measured, then it's not true.
Left brains.
It's just like, well, what does that mean?
So you are kind of a scientist by nature. This is kind of against.
I think I was from our paradigm. Our perspective of the world is very much measurement, materialistic measurement. If it's not,
but this can be measured. That's what we've started to discover. Is only in your own life that you can only really observe it with yourself, because you can't really prove it to anyone. But you can, like you said, one of the tribes believes in the power of thought and how dangerous or powerful that is. And I noticed that in my own life. And everyone's talking about positive mental attitude now and things like that, and everyone knows the power of it, but it can only be measured in your own life. You can't write it down and show someone else what your results are. And that's almost what the power of God is. It can't be proven to anyone. This connection has to just be felt by yourself. And so you're doing, I guess, Quest is like trying to document it in some way over.
Yeah, I just thought, I've been talking forever about being one of the tribe and and trying to see the world through their eyes, but actually I never really was looking at the world through their eyes. I was always I was doing their things, but I was never really looking at it through their eyes. I always held back. I didn't believe some of the things that they were saying. I looked at it from my own, what I considered to be rational perspective. Yeah. But what I've realized is that rationality is much bigger. There is a rational explanation out there to explain interconnection.
Yes.
It's a rationale. It can be kind of shown to some degree.
That's what Rupert Sheldrake's working on.
Yeah, and it might not be measured in the same way, but there are other ways of measuring, and there are other ways of finding evidence or proof. We think of it only in certain terms, but actually there's a whole wealth of stuff going on out there. And also, when you start perceiving or when you start believing or thinking slightly differently, then actually other things happen that can only become apparent when you make that switch.
Synchronicities and things like that.
Yeah, it's like, if you start believing perhaps that your thoughts are affecting the world beyond you. I mean, we know that our thoughts can affect our own bodies, but if you begin to think that your thoughts can affect things beyond you, there's something very strange happens. Now, some neurologists will say, yeah, that's fine, and others will say, well, that's delusional. It's just a form of, some sort of delusion. You're applying some part of your brain to other things, and it's not real. But when you try it, something really special happens, and magic comes back.
It does.
Wow, and that's how a lot of these indigenous groups are seeing the world, and people in the East and all sorts of other cultures. And it's like, okay, I can't prove one way or the other, but that feels great.
Yeah.
Suddenly the world's alive again, and there's gifts, and there's joy, and there's meaning, and everything has texture well beyond this sort of like delineated box-like world that we've created.
So is that what this movie is about?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So that sounds like a tough movie to make.
Did you notice?
No, I'm sorry, Brad. I was being a bit facetious.
No,
it might be a little bit about that, but I'm just going on this journey, and I'm being followed by a crew, and I'm struggling to know what the film's about. Okay. I'm just going to visit these extraordinary people who really see the world in a different way, and really trying to engage with them in a way that I've never done before. And just go, okay, I'm really going to try and listen, really going to try and feel. And realizing as I do that I'm I'm riddled with my own problems, my own insecurities, my own traumas, my own ego that's getting in the way. So I'm going through my own healing as I go in order to be able to try and be still, be centered, be present, so that I can understand what these other people are saying. And it's mind-blowing.
How did you come up with this idea? I mean, you had some time off. Were you going a little stir-crazy? I mean, it sounds like even to someone making this film, they're probably backing Bruce because they know you create great things. But, I mean, did you get a point when you're in Ibiza and you're like, I'm going to do this? Or was it...
I think that I realized that I'd become very addicted to a number of things. And I needed to overcome that. So, for example, I'd been sent around the world to live with all these indigenous groups, with all the new stimulation of all of the different people and different way of looking at the world and all the colors and the jungles and the deserts. And then I come back to Ibiza, entertaining, and meeting 20 people a day. Just very, very rapid life of stimulation. Then I went to Greenland to do a show, and it was white as far as the eye could see, and I went cold turkey. I realized that I was going crazy because I couldn't be with myself, and there was no stimulation. It's just white. It wasn't even a mountain or a hill or a bird or foliage or anything. And I realized that this was a problem. And so after I finished Tribe and then I did Amazon, I took a couple of years out and made myself sit still in my home and did a winter in Ibiza and sort of go cold turkey on my stimulated life. And then during that process, I learned to meditate. I went and did ayahuasca again. And a number of these things started coming out. And when I had done, for example, iboga or ayahuasca during my tribal trips, I had these sensations of connection and bliss and sort of spiritual moments. I'd come back and talk to my friends, and they're like, "Oh, we were just doing a drug trip," so I stick it in a box and forget about it.
Man.
But then during this time off, of course, all of those experiences that I'd had suddenly started coming to the surface. It's like, oh my God, that makes sense, and that makes sense, and that makes sense. And I'd kind of suppressed them all, but I allowed myself some space. And all of these perspectives, some of these indigenous groups and these amazing experiences suddenly came to the surface. And I kind of realized that there was so much more that I hadn't really covered during my programs and during my time. And it was like, and actually through that was also this amazing healing that I was getting. And it was like, wow, this is so beneficial for me in my life. Yes, I'm privileged. I can take time off and be in Ibiza for the winter, but actually this is really beneficial for me, and maybe this could be something that I could share. And then I realized that thing, film, book, whatever it was that I might do, is like, now I'm looking for the Holy Grail. This is so difficult to tell, to show. And also, is it my job to tell or show anyone? It's like, you soon realize that actually these things you're tackling now at the very heart of humanity. You're talking spirituality, you're talking about human nature. It's like you start broaching those subjects with people and people get very defensive. And so even though I was having this extraordinarily beautiful, harmonious healing that was giving me such wonderful enhancement to my life, anytime I mentioned it, it was sort of a bit evangelical. And then you're like, oh no, now I'm like...
so you were guilty of that, of being a little bit...
But you ever never saddened at that point that it's only you feeling it, and then you realise to be happy, you want other people to be happy around you. And you want them to feel it. And I guess that's why you're on this quest now to make this, is because you want to spread that. You've discovered how you can feel, and you want to share that with the world. And there are people that are on this journey, and you might give them the next step that they need to take. So it's definitely a positive thing. Like you said, you're not sure whether, is it your job to tell these people this? But you will inspire so many people that want to hear it, that have always felt this way themselves, but no one has ever said it. They can look through your window, through this piece, and be like, that's what I've been seeing that, but I never knew I was allowed to see that all along, They've just switched it off, and you're hoping to open that for them. That's
really sweet of you. Well, it's proving to be a difficult task. Because there is a bit of me that wants to kind of rattle a cage and go, and of course that is the wrong energy.
Yeah.
And so I just need to be the change and try and hope that whatever I can try and be in my own journey can emanate in some way. But of course we forget that I have the indigenous people, and it's not about using them, because of course that would be wrong, but it's about being with them and sharing them and asking their advice and seeing if in some way we can learn from just their way of being.
Well, they must be happier than most people in London or England. Like, you must notice that these people live this way and they're incredibly happier and more secure than most people in the Western world. So there must be something we can learn from them. As much as we want to shun their lifestyle, there must be so much we can learn from them.
I tend to agree, but it's like you end up getting really, really, really bogged down in very difficult territory because we're projecting. You know, are they happy when they have like child mortality rates, when they have all this and disease? You know, so for us to just say those things, which in fact is within me, I do feel that there is something about them that is very, very, very beautiful that we could learn. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to remember as well that that they're humans and they have lots of problems and they have their own history, and you know, all our projections are very dangerous. But at the same time, you know, I do get people coming up to me all the time. It's like, my kids are surrounded by the most expensive toys. I buy them every week. And then I watch your program and there's this child who's got absolutely nothing and he's the happiest kid in the world. Mm-hmm. And they can't figure it out. And so I'm like, well, actually, there is a reason. And I've kind of, you know, I've been studying this and I'd love to tell you, but how do I go about doing that?
Yeah, you have to get the message right.
Yes.
Without offending them.
It actually reminds me a little bit, maybe you could tell me if this is different, like the first time you try ayahuasca and you opened up to all this realm of emotions, you explore yourself, and a lot of people will go out in the next few weeks and tell everybody that they should do it. It will fix your problems, it'll fix your problems, it'll fix your problems. And maybe that's similar to the revelations you've had, and that's the wrong way because now you're projecting kind of your own energy out. And as you live with that over time, then you realize that people will find that path as they will find it. It's okay to talk about it, but then there's a fine line between preaching and educating, right?
Totally. And not alienating as well. I mean, it's very easy for us to go on our privileged trips and then sort of turn your back a little bit on the place that you were before, and you make it your shadow because it's like, actually, I'm a bit ashamed of the fact that I used to be this party, drug taking, whatever, and you turn your back on it because you need to move away from it, but you're shunning all of those people, and that's part of your audience. It's part of, you know, they're the ones you need to talk to, but by the mere fact that you kind of have moved away, it alienates. And so all of these are very, very difficult things to get right when we're being seen on our journeys, and to try and get the language right, to get the energy right is a very difficult thing.
How's it going?
Not, you know, it's having its problems.
It should be a struggle. It's like Apocalypse Now. If you look at the making of that movie, it was just a struggle for like years and years, and Coppola didn't know how he was going to finish it, and Brando showed up all big and fat, and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to fill in this movie, and that made it beautiful because it was a struggle. Any great thing.
Well, we're all, struggle. Thank you. Yeah, well, you know, I'm working with the most amazing team. And also it's really interesting is that we're seeing that the differences between us in the team, we all have the same vision, which is brilliant, but we do see things differently and we do receive information differently. You know, some of us is all show and not tell, and me is all like tell and not show. And, you know, I'm trying to merge those different methodologies into the creative process is really exciting.
You have a tendency probably to constantly narrate because that's your background, because you were the only voice when you're in Tribe. You're like, I have to tell these people what's going on because we could only see so much.
But also I'm the sort of guy I like reading textbooks. You know, I will watch documentaries, and other people prefer to get their information from a story. Others prefer to just feel it through watching imagery. You know, some people can go and sit in front of a Rothko and cry. I look at a bunch of paint on the wall. I don't feel it in the same way, and we're all receiving information very differently. And yet, to try and merge all of those into one creative media output is not easy. But if we can do that, that's be really special.
Okay, so this should be out next year, hopefully. Or is there an end date?
What year is it? 2013?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, who knows? Next year.
Okay,
yeah.
but you've got people that believe in you and will help you finance it, and people like Damien Hirst that are happy to help you.
Yeah, and we've been so privileged to have had, really nice patronage from some very special people who've helped us out and saw something in it. And
your name doesn't hurt. I mean, nobody else could probably do what you're doing. I mean, you have a reputation of bringing quality work, of going out and investigating. I mean, people want to hear
living
it. Well, keep that going, because if they ever saw what's happening, it's like, no, it's all fully, no, it's it's proving hard. This one's proving tough.
Do you notice that there's people in like South America and people in like China in these tribes, and their beliefs are very similar, even though they've never met, but they're connected to Mother Earth, and they'll call their gods by different names and things, but is there a very similar way of lifestyle?
A way of life, not so much, but definitely there is real commonalities between so many of these spiritual practices. There really are, and you know, and there are lots of theories about that too, and I think that sense of oneness, that sense of connection, that sort of non-dual state is very strong in many cultures, and I think it's probably there's a distinct possibility that that's what we all felt at some time. You know, that when you go on mushrooms and you see everything alive and all that could be the reality that is real. And it's actually only as a result of us separating ourselves and through agriculture and worrying about the future, not being present, and through energies flowing and our egos that taking up all of this energy, or all these other things, that is reducing the filter, so that actually what we end up seeing is a much less rich world. Yeah. And that other world, when you do ayahuasca or iboga, or if you meditate, or if you're doing yoga, when you're more in your body and more in the present, and then you feel that sense, maybe that is something that we always used to feel.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, none of us can say here and now.
I believe it.
But you know,
all we can feel, and we're discovering we've headed that direction. We've just got a few hurdles on the way.
Well, why did you go back and make ayahuasca part of this film? I mean, it's something you did in the past for television, but why was this important?
Because in my life it's been huge. You know, I think that probably meditation and ayahuasca have been some of my greatest healing methodologies, if you will. I mean, yoga would be too, but I really don't practice it enough. But yeah,
what's your history with ayahuasca? How many ceremonies, or when, or?
I'm as regular as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first time you did it was
television.
For television.
Thanks very
much.
much.
Which was when? 07 or Iboga was 06, I think. Right?
I don't even know.
Okay, so many years ago.
Yeah, a while back.
But that was for the show. But then you realized you got a lot of spiritual.
Yeah, and like, you know, the director at the time was like, Bruce, we can't put all of the things, you're waxing lyrical about this. You know, we're gonna, you know, we can't put it all in, you know. But yeah, for me that was a beautifully profound healing process, and then since then I've done it many times. I go to Colombia, I was just there recently, and I've done it in other parts of the world, and every time it's beautiful. I mean, I'm always aware of the set and setting, and you know, being in the right state of mind and the right process beforehand, and the right practitioner and environment. And all those things. Are you
fearful ever still?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Are you excited more now?
Every time is different. I'm much more in harmony with the process these days, but I have to be careful not to be too
complacent.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you get a slapping.
Yeah, you always. I always tell people, if you're not scared when you're going to an ayahuasca ceremony, I tell people you should be. And yeah, it's those times where you get complacent, where Mother Ayahuasca whacks you in the head, and he introduces some new frames of mind to you. Yeah. But I think it's just kind of natural to be a little timid. I think the more you do it, you do become a little more experienced. As in, I know this is going to happen, but
I need to do that.
Yeah, we need to talk about that with you. But I know it's something that Graham Hancock goes every year religiously. And when he was here, we said, Graham, you know, my co-host said, Graham, you've obviously got everything together in your life. You're writing books and everything. And Graham's like, I go back every year, because none of us ever have it all together. We always need a reminder of.
I've done it probably 20 times in the last few months. You know.
Wow. Okay. And it was an important part to make this part of the movie for you.
Actually, what ended up happening is there's a practitioner that I go to in Colombia who I adore, who's a very, very important man in my life. He's a very great mentor, and I wanted to go to him, but we ended up taking my brother and an ex-girlfriend and some other friends of the crew, and we all went out as a group. And so I have my own experience, and then it was also nice to have a family member and old friends also have their experiences, which was very new for them. They had no concept of what was coming, and in every instance it was great. My ex-girlfriend had this extraordinary, beautiful connection and with the divine, which was very important for her. My ex-brother had some answers. For me, I went back into the womb. In fact, I saw my mum this weekend. This was like a few months later. And I was like, when I was back in the womb in the ayahuasca experience, I realized that I had been kind of, I had this really big problem being strangled during birth, it felt. And like that had been this quite strong energy within me that had given me like this fear that had been sort of influenced a lot of my behaviour since, in quite a negative way.
From that one moment, and you asked your mum
From that
about
moment
it, and
of
it was
birth,
true. That,
yeah, and actually, and it'd been really, it was a really strong thing. Like that, I wasn't able to hold my breath. I would have a panic attack and stuff. I tried to do
so
free diving recently, and even just putting my head under the water for like 20 seconds, and I was like panicking, and everyone else was like a minute or two. And it's been a very strong thing within me. And then I spoke to my mum just the other day, and she was like, "Oh yeah. Didn't I tell you? When you were born, you had the umbilicus was around your neck, and I had to stop contracting, and they had to come in and cut it because we were really worried about you."
Wow.
I was like, "Did you tell me that before?" She goes, "No, I don't think so." It's like, but that was my ayahuasca. It's truly strong. But the most amazing thing isn't just that story corroborates and it's so beautiful, but me releasing that very, very real energy. I mean, I was really concentrating and meditating in the pit of my stomach, and I could feel it. It was very hard to keep my attention there. It was like really painful, but I could just about, and then every time I managed to get my attention in that place, then it would shift, and finally it came out. And then ever since that moment, I've realized that those times that I've kind of been threatened, where normally I would be defensive in an argument if someone's talking about something that I believed in, then I would be like a little bit aggressive or a little bit overly energetic. It's gone. I can sit there now and hear people saying all sorts of stuff, whereas previously I would be jumping out of myself and find this little voice in the middle of the room go, yep, and everyone ended up being quiet. And I go, oh God, that was me, wasn't it? And now that is gone. I'm like, wow, that was that. And that's been there that whole time. And that, I have to thank it. It's given me a great gift, and I'm grateful for that. But I had to let it go. It's like, I don't need that anymore. And I feel so much more at peace.
It's wild listening to you. I had a similar experience. My second ayahuasca experience was really big. I actually was right on that sofa behind you about a year ago. And yeah, I went back to the 7-year-old Brian Rose, and my parents divorced when I was young. And I just like built up all these barriers around me. And I went right back to that 7-year-old kid. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, you built up all these barriers your whole life so no one can hurt you again. And like, I just made a lot of peace with that stuff.
Wow.
And it's interesting. Do you think there's a finite number of those adventures where you can go deep? I mean, you can't go much further than the womb. Do you think there's a finite number of ayahuasca experiences where you dig down deep into
I think that's a good question.
There's a lot of programming. You've got to go through it all back.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's chronological. I think that happened to be a big thing, and so that was one that came up, you know. But I think there is always another layer. Whether or not I don't feel that I have to keep going because it's part of my, life ritual. I go when I'm called. I definitely have felt that I had some stuff to deal with, but that will dissipate in time. And there's sometimes, I get offered it a fair bit. I'm in the right circles, and I'm often saying no, actually no, I don't feel like it right now. And it's important to only go when it's calling you, And I think that will slow down.
Do you find a lot of your viewers turn off when you start talking about psychedelics? I watched an interview with you when you were up in Scotland or something, and you were saying it's you living in Ibiza, they're very distinct things, whether it's a proper setting for a psychedelic experience, whether it be ayahuasca or psilocybin, versus dropping ecstasy at a club. Although I hate to be I'm not the guy that tells you how to consume or be sovereign over your own body, as Graham would say. But do you find yourself explaining that to people?
Yeah, my living in Ibiza doesn't help
right.
my reputation when it comes to talking about these sorts of things, because of the reputation that Ibiza has,
But that's tourists in Ibiza. The people that live in Ibiza.
Very true, but let's face it, not a lot of people quite rightly only know the reputation, and the reputation is just party, unconscious, drug taking, whatever, and I know that world too, and I know how to separate. But right now, for the last 4 years, I have been very much on I was on a dieta of no sex, drugs, alcohol, or anything, pretty much for the last 4 years. I'm not fully there at the moment. I've come off it, but at the same time, that was very much part of my journey.
That's quite so for no sex, drugs, alcohol for like periods of years.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Something Tim would do.
It was another one of the most beautiful lessons of my life. So many of these things which you think are natural. And then you realize when you stop it, actually how controlling it was of you. It was controlling your every being, and it wasn't natural. It was an addiction, and I just think we're so much more riddled with these things.
We are. Well, the 7 sins basically goes. They're a number for a reason.
It's just
the gluttony, the sex, the lust. Lust is the problem, not more than the sex. But I just what it leads to every time.
It's interesting because when you talk about your abstinence, it's like people can say, "Oh, no drugs, no alcohol, that's fine." But when you say sex, everyone probably is like, "What?"
Totally,
That's
and
the
it's
one.
really hard to explain because it's like it was asked of me by this group of people that I wanted to go and visit, and they
This
just
is the
said,
tribe in Colombia.
"That's right, yeah,"
Okay.
and they just said, give up your addiction.
Is that no masturbation as well?
Well, I tried to, but that was like really, really difficult, and I wasn't able to fully. I did my best at all of that, and there were very long periods of time that I was pretty good, but the things slipped and what have you. So I've also been guilty of taking a lot of credit for doing it to a higher degree than I probably did, and I think I need to step away from that.
No, but that's still like you're leading an exploration there that other people should do, and I completely back that. That like.
It was an exploration, and for me, initially, I had no idea, and like most of them were easy, but like the sex was very difficult. And it's the question, why? Sex is natural. Why would you want to give it up?
Right.
But then
it's natural in the physical world, though. But then beyond that, it's like
And in the Western world, we associate sex with so many other things.
Well, what I realised was, of course, that I just had a massive addiction to the female form. It was an objectification of females rather than the loving, heart-based, resonant sort of connection that I later discovered. But that took me over a year to actually move away from my loins and into my heart. And I had no idea that that's what was going to happen. And even to this day, I still struggle with my objectification. And, I come back to London, and it's sex everywhere. It's like absolutely crazy. I'm just pulling my hair out. But I have had periods of my life where I now realize the difference between what was driving me previously and what I was able to finally find, which is this completely different sensation of connection, which fulfilled me in every sense, which wasn't lustful, which was just loving and harmonious and not needy. There was no need, it was real love. And it was like, wow, that's what people talk about. I had no idea this shit goes on in the world. And that was the gift, I would never have found that for myself. I was just on my normal road like everyone else, thinking, well, this is normal. I'm just going to do my thing, trying to be nice, trying to be a nice guy, but absolutely missing the point for me on every turn.
Well, I always see it as, say you're on an aeroplane, there's a kid behind you and he starts kicking the seat and it bugs you, but for that kid, his reality is just he's in his seat, he's been on this plane for hours and he wants to get out and move around, so he's kicking the seat. He's not aware that he's disrupting everyone on the plane and you in front of it. So as adults, we've grown older. How many things do we do in our everyday life that are like that kid in the chair, but we're less aware of in maybe a more spiritual form, where we're hurting if we have sex with women and their emotions involved, and then you may hurt them or something. And there's other things, obviously, with what we're eating, with food, with agriculture, with every iPhone that we buy. Are we still that kid in the chair kicking the guy in front, completely oblivious to how much harm and disruptive we're causing to the whole planet?
But it's hard, man. We're growing
look
up
at
in this
yourself,
society.
yeah.
It's tough.
I guess it's like when you meditate for a while, at first you're like, what am I doing? And then like a month later, 2 months, you start notice, wait a second, I don't do some of the behaviors I used to do. And I guess with abstaining from sex, you probably are like, wait a second, I'm a different person now, 3 months in, 6 months in.
How much more energy do you have when you're not checking everyone out walking down the shopping mall? It's like, wow, I can actually concentrate on something else. It's just really amazing.
Because it's like a low-level chakra, it responds at a much faster frequency. So before your brain can think or anything, it's like boom, like it's way more. It's a much deeper connection into us, in a nature connection, I guess, as well, through the root chakra.
Have you gone and visited this tribe, or was it like was it a request they made that you have to kind of purify yourself before you go see them? Or?
I only had that one sentence from them 4 years ago, and I haven't actually met that guy since. So I've kind of been on my own journey of trying to figure things out.
But
and
you
yes,
believe it to be true.
I have connected with them again since, and it's and we were about to film with them recently, and then there sadly was an accident. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but we're hoping that that the right thing will happen. And if that's them wanting us to come in, that would be great. And if not,
what are your next trips that you have planned that you need to kind of finish the movie, or is it not like that?
No. There's definitely a number of indigenous groups that we really want to see.
Okay.
There's 2 in the Amazon, and 1 in Colombia, and maybe 1 in the Congo. Each have very special. All indigenous groups are special. All people are special. We know that. But there's certain aspects to their culture that I thought were very interesting that might help might help shed light on this thing that we're trying to grapple with in the film. You know, this connection, this sense of spirit and all that. And so we've found some groups, but also that can allow us to see, you know, our potential as humans and all these things that we're touching on. But it's we don't know if we're going to get into these. Some of these groups are very hard to visit, quite rightly, and we've been in contact with them all, and they know we're interested, and they've mostly said yes, but we still have to go through processes to ensure that that's done in the right way. It's very difficult.
And how is this process different than, say, an episode of Tribe? Do you go in with a completely different vibe? Do you leave the cameras off for a while, or how do you do that?
Yeah, we're actually, this next two groups that we're seeing in Brazil, for example, the aim is that actually we're making the film with them rather than about them. Okay. And so we're going to go and it's more like I'm asking their advice for me. This is what we're interested in talking about. Can you help us translate? Can you what do you think? And also, what do you think of us? Now that's not necessary. I don't know how well that's going to work, because it's quite hard to have a view where you are able to see both. Where their perspective of us is going to resonate with us, because it might be from, who knows what they're going to say. But that's our aim, is to try and include them more in that process, because I feel that these two groups that we're going to visit, they do know quite a lot about our world, and it'd be really nice. What do you think?
Their opinion and why they continue to live the way they do.
Yeah. What do they take from our world that's good, and what do they see as dangerous? I was just with a group in Borneo, and they're moving from nomadism to settlement, and from hunter-gatherer to farming, and that sort of like very strong moment that we've all been through in our history, where we settled for the first time and started agriculture, thinking of the future and all the things that go with it. And also they're coming into the material world as well, and so asking them, what do you think? And they were like, well, we've chosen not to use money within our community. We see that if you start using money within the community, it kills it. Yeah. Suddenly you get this disparity of wealth. It's too powerful a substance, and it will kill.
It's stored energy.
So many,
it's dangerous.
Stores. It's like we get to reduce things again and again and again, and that helps when that sort of breeds our addictions even more. Whether it's the coca leaf that's chewed quite harmlessly down to the cocaine, which is like really difficult, or the spirit that is from alcohol to a spirit. All of these things, when you synthesize it and take it to that next level, it becomes so much more potent. And some of these indigenous groups can see that and go, well, actually, that's we don't want to touch that, because that's really, it's negative. It's like it's difficult to handle. We don't know how to handle it. We don't want to handle it, and it plays to the worst aspects of us. And that's so wise. You go, well, you're right. We have all these addictions in our society. We think of addiction, whether it's sex or love or alcohol or drugs.
Or
like,
cooked
that's
food.
Bad.
Cooked food is such a one that people don't want to look at. They would never think cooked food is an addiction. But food is delivered as it should be eaten, in my belief. I eat mostly raw fruit and vegetables as it comes. There's no other being on this planet other than the human race that cooks their food, and they survive, they thrive, they're very healthy. And so again, we complicate things by trying to make these fancy dishes, and yes, they taste better, but are we addicted then to eating a fancy meal every time? Every time we want to eat something, we have to cook it and prepare it and make it. We can't just enjoy a tomato or 10 tomatoes as one meal. The way maybe we would have in a history, like monkeys or something, we find a fig tree, we'd just eat figs until we're full and then we move on. And we complicate things now by trying to make all these fancy dishes, and we're upset if we don't get this variance of fruits and vegetables and meats on our plates. Then we're like, why don't we can't just eat one meal. And so it's another addiction that goes even deeper beyond drugs and alcohol and sex. Is food is a big problem.
Well, I was also going to add as well. We name some of these addictions as socially difficult, but the really biggest addictions of all in our society, we don't even think of as negative. An addiction to power and greed. They're the things that are causing the real problems. Look at the people. People who are doing the least positive for the society are the ones who are the most successful, and the ones who are doing the most for our society. The teachers and the nurses who do the most get the less, and the people with the addiction to greed who are just playing with the money.
Yeah. Do you think money's a drug?
I think that it all depends on your definition, but I think that it's a substance that is
It's given too much power.
All I know is I live with some indigenous groups that share, and they see it as something to be very careful about. And I've lived with a number of groups now that when the money comes in, whereas previously, you're in trouble, I'll help you out. Now it's like, well, you're in trouble, well, give us a bit of cash. And you could say, well, that's got nothing to do with the money, that's just human nature. But what they have identified is that makes it easier. And not only that, the thing about money is it often, even if you're not sharing, if you're bartering or if you're exchanging, I'll look after I'll be a reindeer herder and you make saddles. Well, then you give me a reindeer and you give me a saddle and I'll give you a few reindeer. But that's kind of an uneven mix, so it keeps our bond. It's like, I'm always kind of in debt to you and you're always kind of in debt to me, so we have that human interaction. But as soon as you have money, it completely terminates it, and you and I can walk away. Right. Which means that when we grow up in our society, it's like, okay, if I only got more money, I can be completely independent. And that's the goal. It's like we all aspire to this place where we can all live in isolation, and not isolation, but live independently. And we think that will make us happier. But of course it doesn't. What it makes is it means we don't have to deal with each other. Right. Whereas actually it's good to deal with each other because that helps us to heal, it helps society, it helps us. But when we get all this stuff that I don't care, the milkman can come tomorrow, he could die in the next one, I don't care, it's just as long as I'm doing the money, it doesn't matter. I don't have to deal with him, there's no human interaction. And that's another form of separation. And all of these cuts in our human interaction, all of these separations that we're having in our community, in ourselves, our separation from nature. Money adds, it's just one of those other things that allows it to become easier to separate. And that causes the hole within us, the trauma, that sort of longing for something, and so we fill it with an addiction.
Right, a medication.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We all choose our different addiction.
Yeah.
It's like, well, some will do this and some will do that and some will have power, and it all depends a bit on our youth. But that thing that we're missing, which is the love and contentment and community, and when that's not there, we want something else to fill it, but you can never fill that hole.
We had a guest on, his name was Charles Eisenstein, and he was talking about community, and he said you can't form community unless you need people. And he had this example where he moved to Chicago and he went to a suburb, and I moved recently to like Belsize Park, and I was like, all right, we're gonna have a community, and you have people over for barbecues and you hang out, and then they leave. And then because you don't really need them, they don't need you. You don't need them to look over your children. You don't need them for bartering. And so ultimately you can have this kind of fabricated community, an online community. But if you don't ultimately need each other back and forth, then, like you said, you kind of have this money, and I don't need you anymore.
He's an amazing man, Charles. He's an amazing man, and I've read a couple of his books, and I think he's an extraordinary mind, and he's a very influential writer.
Gift Economy is his, right?
The Sacred Economy.
Okay, Sacred Economy. Oh yeah, that's the book.
And his other book.
He's quite young, right?
Yeah. He's brilliant. He's very, very good. But the other thing I think he articulates very well is not only that thing about money sort of terminating relationships, but also, as you say, in the community we don't rely on each other, but also we're not creating together, and we're all so used to being stimulated by these things that are created by other people. So we all go and watch the football. We're not actually playing football, we're watching it. Or we all go and play the computer game. We didn't create the computer game, we're playing it together.
Or Game of Thrones, we watch that.
Yeah, or whether it's a TV series or whatever, we're not actually creating. Or even if you just go and party, we're not actually we're not creating together. And so we're just participating in someone else's creation. And that means that, okay, so when I leave the party world, actually, I didn't really have any strong bonds with any of those people at all. I'll just get replaced by the next one. Yeah. Or the guys watching football with me. Now, if I'm playing football, or if I'm playing in a band, or if I'm creating something, if I'm part of the creative process, then actually I'm a very intrinsic part of that, and I do have a real connection, and I'm in it. But if you're just observing, like most of us are, like I'd love to come home and just turn on the box and watch a film. But what I'd like to do, what I aspire to do in my life is actually sit with a buddy and play on a fiddle or something. And then that's a much more joint creation, and I think that it builds a much stronger bond. But we have such hard lives. We just come back and just sit back and all I want to do is watch the box. And I get it, but I think that adds to our separation. And I think that Charles describes that really beautifully in one of his books.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was
Because you
gonna say-
create a lot of things.
Yeah, I love that, and it's so much more power when you do it in groups as well.
Of course.
Because it's all right to have one idea, but when you have other people with the same vision, like you on Quest, you have so much more strength in that. Someone wrote me a note the other day, and I wrote it in Italian and then English for some reason, but it said we're each angels with one wing, and when we're together we can fly. You know, so you have to work with other people.
Yeah, nice.
There's so much more strength in numbers. You know, it's like when you each have that same motive. But I was going to ask, is there ever any vegetarian tribes you found?
There's obviously a lot of vegetarianism in India, but as far as indigenous groups that I know some indigenous groups that have very little protein in their diet, but that's not out of choices because there isn't much protein in the area. In New
But
Guinea,
there's actually no medical term for protein deficiency. It's much more. It's a malnutrition before it gets to that stage. So
there are some interesting diseases that come about when there's
Oh,
not
really?
much protein
Can
in the
you
environment.
tell me?
There's one called pig bell, but it's only when they end up eating then a pig, because they have so little protein in their diet, they'll eat locusts and bugs and grubs. But then when they get a big pig, there's some parasites in it that they're not used to, and that can like cause necrosis of the stomach, I think. But
how do they deal with if they're connected? They feel this connected to everything around them, with then killing animals and eating them. Do they say prayers before? And
yeah, I think again, it's really, every group is so different, and so there is no they or there.
Yeah,
they're
sure.
all so different, and we all, there's a bit of our sentimental hearts that love listening to the tales of First Nations talking about, not being able to eat money and how we're going to destroy the planet, and so much of that. I also have a similar romantic notion, even having lived with these groups. But they're also very pragmatic. They're also very much connected to the earth. They're very, very, real. And it's really hard sometimes to ask them about spirit and their connection and not put my own projections in there. And I'm finding that quite difficult with the film I'm making, is that I have come with a relatively romantic view, and to take that away and be there with them. A couple of times I've asked questions, hoping or expecting this talk of connection and value and honouring spirit and stuff, and it wasn't there, and it kind of shook me a little bit. So it's very,
really,
but then it's just probably my questioning, and I'm not there long enough.
Or the language, or something.
100 things, and so so the truth is I'm not enough of an expert to know. I certainly, having read a lot of the anthropologists' work, see that they definitely are, in a very real way, more connected to their environment and see the effects of their behaviour. But as far as that other ethereal thing, that thing that we all like to talk about, I haven't figured that one out yet. That whether or not we are all really tangibly connected. I mean, we in all of our chats, we love that. Whether we lord it out in with Sheldrake talks or Irvin Laszlo or quantum field theorists and all these things. Like, it's it's sort of entangled. That's it. It answers all of these sensations that we have. But there's also the neurologists who say it's just delusional, and like it feels so real at every sinew within us.
Yeah.
There's no simple answer, is there?
There is none.
And when you go see these cultures, you have to be careful not to project it subconsciously or through translation or all this stuff, that your own ideas on what they're saying.
Yeah,
That
and
must be
this film is proving very difficult for that.
Okay.
And I've had to reevaluate my own methodology for investigation.
Okay, not to get that,
Yeah.
get what you want. Well, what's going to be a success for this film? I know it's so strange because like we're talking about not to get caught up in our own Western version of success, but come a year from now when this is released or whenever you're planning on it, what will make you happy?
That's a really good question. That's changed a lot over the last year. I obviously, for this to be received, humbly received. Not humbly received, for it to be humbly presented and joyfully received by people who feel that it answers to some part of them that perhaps they were wanting, that they were feeling and need to hear. That would be really very beautiful, and I hope that does in fact happen.
Because it does matter what people think. I mean, you're putting your heart and soul into this, so ultimately you do want to hear.
His ego wants to hear, but he.
Yeah, it's like actually, there's a bit of me as well. It's like, okay, so Bruce, how much of this is your ego, and how much of this is is your desire to, where do you stand on this? What are you going to do at the end? You're going to go and humbly live in a mud hut at the edge of the island and just have a family, or not have a family and just be with nature, or be in a community, or do you want to start to be an activist and challenge the next level of this, or where is it? You're going to be the change, or you're going to lead the charge, or I have no idea. And there's a bit of me inside that feels that there's an activist part inside me that's like kind of scary, but it feels very real. And there's another bit of me that just kind of wants to not be in the public eye and to just do it and just to just reconnect, because there has been a disparity between my words and my life, and that's one of the other things that was fueling this journey. It's like getting all this beautiful credit for going around the world and doing these amazing things, and yet my life wasn't reflecting the lessons that I'd learned.
Wisdom is the application. Knowledge is one thing, but
absolutely
learning to apply it.
You said you kind of envied the serenity of the tribe's life that you were there, but then you couldn't copy it when you were there.
You've lived too much of a different life.
Well, but less so now, I think that now, having had so much more healing, and I think the meditation has been key to that. Ayahuasca is good for a slap every now and then, but I think that the meditation has been the mainstay in me becoming more at peace with myself. And
what's your routine for meditation?
I kind of make it up.
Daily?
Try, but it's never daily.
Okay, and how long do you go for? It's just gotta get details.
Have you got a tick list on the wall?
I'm back to doing my transcendental, so I'm doing two 20-minute periods, one right when I wake up and one actually before I leave the office.
Okay.
So that's me, but I stopped it for a long time, and then I regretted it, and I went back into it, and I'm like, wow, this is why I did it. So I'm always curious.
Yeah, I used to time it, and I used to do like 40 minutes, but I reckon I would probably do between 20 and 30 right now, if I'm really honest, once a week.
Okay.
But like when I'm on a roll, it'll be every day, but it all depends on my routine, and if I'm in a routine, it's much easier, but my life's very rarely routine.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So do we know when this movie's come out? It's going to be a big theatrical release. You would like it to be in the US and the UK and around the world, or what's...
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? We'll see. Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay,
we'll see.
And we don't have an end date. We don't know. End of next year, or probably the following year.
I think we're middle of this year. Yeah, I think middle of next year to the end of next year.
Okay,
I'm super excited.
No, I am
for
too.
you to do amazing work with the BBC and then to have your own input and be like independent on this, I guess, to a degree, and with work like someone like Damien Hirst, you say, is helping to back it. That's a big shout right there. So
yeah, he's amazing.
There's some power in that. I'm really excited. I love documentaries, and right now there's so many documentaries on the same thing that for you to be stepping it up another gear. I'm sure there are a few other people making very similar, or attempting to, but no one quite the same.
And it's
level,
There's a book called The Long Tail, and it's all about how media these days, you just have to find the right small group that really wants to do that. And you used to have like a film like Jaws where everyone would like, or a BBC show that like millions of people would have to watch. But now, if you find that core group of 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 people worldwide that love what you do, that's all you need as an audience, because they'll be crazy about your film. And it doesn't have to compete with Transformers, or it doesn't have to compete with, something on the History Channel that's, a documentary, but it's really a reality show. You can do that nowadays. It's what London Real is about. I mean, we get specific people that really like to hear people's stories, and you wouldn't watch this on the BBC, and that's okay,
Yeah, nice. Well, my hope is that we're going to really be able to express as deeply as we can these things in a way that's understandable, and have it as a felt experience as well, and then for that to just find its place, and if it's a small group that grows, that's okay. I don't envisage it being to the broadest audience, because I think it's a little bit more niche than what we've done before, but how nice if we could do the whole spectrum.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I want to ask you one thing I've been thinking about, and it kind of comes out subtly in some of your interviews, and I'll be honest, it's a little biographical on myself because I'm 42 right now. I look good for 42 though, right?
Yeah, man.
Thank you,
I was
Tim.
just thinking, you like clean skin.
Yeah, it's something that I've never had any children, and it's like fatherhood is something you kind of drop in here and there, and like as I get older, it's like, and as I have more experiences, whether it's with ayahuasca or traveling or whatever, you always think, it's this part of my own psyche I haven't explored yet, and you kind of drop little references to it that maybe one day. And I was just wondering, is it something you think about, and has your concept of it changed even in the last few years?
Yeah, totally. It is something I think about, unsurprisingly. I'm not driven by it at all. I mean, I'm single at the moment, so first things first.
Yeah, okay.
And if I was to be lucky enough to be with someone and fall in love, and they didn't want, that would be fine by me. Happily adopt, happily be in a community and have other kids run around. I have no drive to have my own kids. And I did sort of make a promise actually to myself through an ayahuasca vision a while back to not, unless I was really living in harmony with Mother Nature. And I think, I've had the curse and the privilege of seeing the world, from a very global perspective. And, when you see, there's so many people talking about population, but it's also our consumption that's the real problem. And, we have to ask the question, is it just our divine right to all have kids? There's 7 billion or however many of us there are. It's like, we have to be asking those questions. And it's completely just accepted that having kids is fine and it's the right thing. It's what we should all be doing. And actually, I guess I've questioned that for myself. It's like, maybe having kids is, for me, I'm only talking about myself, is fine, but perhaps only if I'm in a community where I can put into practice the things that I've learned, and when I'm in a more harmonious place with nature, which right now I'm not. So I think, hey, who knows? I might meet someone tomorrow and be having kids in 9 months. I'm not nailing myself to any post, but that's really what's inside me right now.
You said you're not in a harmonious place with nature. Is that because you're moving around so much?
Yeah, I mean, it's another irony and the hypocrisy of my life talking about these things when I've got one of the largest carbon footprints that's ever probably sat in this room, and it's like, and
interesting.
That plays on my mind, it's real. Some of my ayahuasca that I was doing before coming on this journey, before starting on it, was like, don't go, just flog your house, get out the mortgage system, go and start your little plot of land and love the earth. Yeah. And I'm like, what could be more simple and what could speak stronger to my soul than that? It's absolutely, that's in the core of my being. That's what is driving me. And then the people around me go, oh yeah, Bruce, just do it after the film, It's like, it's better to share that message. And I'm like, okay. And so I kind of, I'm in a quandary. I can see that there might be a positive benefit to doing things like I'm doing, but I'm also fully aware that there's a massive hypocrisy in my being, and I look forward to leveling that at some stage. And it's not like I'm beating myself up, and it's like, I'm happy, I dance and I sing, I'm in a really great space. But I need, there's some things I'd like to do and to sort out a little bit better.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about how if you want change, there's only so much you can do. I mean, we can all try to grow our own food and do all this, but like you're still going to be relying on this.
But it's together. We have to, and making things like this help us grow as a race together. You spread the awareness, and
it's good to make an effort. But then you were saying like, how much can one person do? Maybe what you're supposed to do is this. Maybe that's what you're supposed to do. Not be carbon neutral. Maybe you're supposed to get this message out to everyone.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I go through that same debate quite a lot. I kind of tend to end up falling on, actually, probably, I excuse myself a lot with that, but really what I feel deeply inside is kind of stepping out, being in a community, just getting on with it. And maybe later something else in a slightly different way, but right now I feel I have to, And it's dangerous me saying these things because here it is being recorded. I might do something completely different in the future.
Change your mind.
But it's like the debate about economics. Some people say it's absolutely fine to go out and make lots and lots of money because then I can give it all to charity. It's like, well, yes, great, but is that what our society should be hailing? No, presumably society itself should be doing these things.
I think as long as you're spreading love, that's what should be spread, because money isn't going to solve problems that money got us into. Love is only going to solve the problems, especially with like the homeless and other situations like that. We just have to spread love. And there's so much new. I saw an advert the other day for some phone someone wants to make called a phone block or something, and on the back you just have the little bits, because phones are one of the worst things for causing pollution on the planet and throwing them away and all the radiation they're giving off. Whereas if something breaks in your phone, you can just swap a block out and get a new one. And that was a really cool idea, and it got like 10 million views in a week or something. Little things like that, these little up-and-coming creative people that actually care and give a fuck about the planet are coming to light now, and it's going to be the future. And you've got the Tesla car coming out, which is like an all-electric car, which is supposed to be really good, and that's going to change a lot of things. And these are all little steps, but then there's a journey within that we all have to do, like dietary things and other addictions that we've got, where we have to, which can do the little things, the everyday things, like the choice of what's on your plate every day in front of you. That's what you can see the difference that you're making right there. Whereas carbon footprint from phone bills, electricity, or from electricity and from heat, gas and all that stuff is not as obvious to us, but
this whole concept of community is something like, it sounds like a cool thing to be a part of, but part of me thinks I'm never really going to be part of a community unless I go old school, unless I really go move out somewhere where we need each other again. Because I don't know, am I going to find a community in London?
Well, it is a global community.
Anti-urbanite is what you are.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think that we are all in communities already, and we have the choice to make friends with our neighbours and actually really go out and do that, whoever they are, and try and harmonise those experiences that we have every day with those around us, which is beautiful and great. Yeah. Or others might decide that they actually feel that the tendrils of the industry trying to addict our children and all the rest of it is so powerful that they would rather step out and perhaps be in a place where there's less of that, and I think it depends a lot on many things, your circumstances, your drive, your vision of what's going to happen in the future, and all of these things play out in how we make those decisions. And there is no right or wrong answer. We all find our own space, but I think what you touched on, Tim, is really important. For me, in my own personal life, all of these things are secondary to my own inner healing process. Because everything I touch or do, we always look for the technological fix. It's another thing that Charles Eisenstein describes very beautifully. It's like the technological fix is just around the corner. We'll sort it all out. We'll sort it all out. We'll sort it all out.
Yeah.
And actually, no, those things in the hands of us when we're still disturbed slightly aren't going to help us. It's only actually when we find our own inner peace that we're able to be more placid, be more present, be more able to connect with our neighbours, be more able to be the people we really can be. And so for me, just trying to inspire people to take more responsibility, to look in, to feel, to go on that inner journey, and to realise that everything that we do, our thoughts, our words, our actions, not only to each other but also to the planet, is really important. And I think that's a very big part of the film that I'm learning along the way, is that all of this beautiful teachings that we've had from these amazing sages from the East and other parts of the world who've taught us so much about how to be with ourselves and each other, but that one extra element which has kind of been overlooked, that if we are all one, well, all, not just humans, but plants and animals and nature and rocks, the whole lot, that is also part of us. We are that. And when we're hurting that, we're hurting ourselves too, and we can see it. And bringing in that indigenous element that reminds us, the animistic element, that everything is alive and everything has meaning and everything is part of us.
And the gratitude when you use something as well, when you consume something, there's so much gratitude that goes out. But with the way we live here, there's no connection to what's gone on. We just consume, throw away.
And we do sometimes limit it to people, don't we? It's like, let's all get along as people, and you're forgetting about the plants and the rocks and the nature.
Yeah, and the animals.
But if you take on that indigenous perspective, that we are all interconnected some way, and that what you are doing is also in some way, you're doing it to yourself, and that allows you to perhaps, reevaluate how you behave and your actions, and take responsibility. And then when you start doing that, what I've noticed is that actually you slow down, but also things just, and as you say, you feel the gratitude, you feel a different sense, and everything, starts flowing. Life starts flowing, and all of those little, there seems to be a law to this nature that if you're respecting everything, if you're respecting and aware of everything you touch, And if you're being aware of that, then suddenly gifts start landing out of nowhere, and you feel like you're on this like beautiful, gentle conveyor belt going forwards. And isn't life amazing? It's all this stuff coming to you. It's just because you're a little bit more aware of your words, even your thoughts. You know,
That's it. When what you say, what you think, and what you do are in harmony, then you get in that flow. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the
If
trifecta.
someone said something recently, if you want something, give it away. That's what they said.
Yeah, you send that circle out,
Yeah.
the flow, and it's the same with money. If you give it out in a pure way, not a selfish way, trying to give money to get something back, materialistic. If you give it in a pure way, it always comes back. It's a loop, and what you throw out the front comes back in. And people don't see that. They're too busy caught up in their petty day-to-day lives, gossiping, and they're causing a shitstorm behind them, and it comes back out. That way around slaps them in the face. Whereas, if you want something, give it away. Comes back.
To think about this, Bruce, I'm gonna kind of finish up with a question I ask everyone in that seat.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard this before, but if you had to make a phone call to the 20-year-old Bruce Parry, I don't know if you were in the Marines or not by then or not.
I
I'm
was,
not sure.
yeah.
And give him a bit of advice, and it can't be, keep going, Bruce, you're doing good. What would it be? What would you tell that 20-year-old?
Wow, that's a really beautiful question. What would I ask the 20-year-old Bruce?
Or tell him, either one.
Yeah, or tell him. God, I think you've stumped me. What would I tell him?
What was that guy like?
He was pretty disturbed. You know, he was a bit. He was a bit troubled. So I would tell him that. God, that's really good. What would I tell him? I can't even connect with him. He seems
He's
so
a different
far
guy,
away.
almost?
Yeah, totally.
Was he chasing a lot of demons, that guy?
He had a lot of demons. He was
Okay.
chasing other things.
Okay.
Very drunk. I'd tell him, what would I tell him? Well, I kind of would tell him, don't worry, it's all good. But you just told me not to say that.
You could say that, but I don't know if he would have listened to you.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the message. I don't know.
Because actually, I can't. I think that every single aspect of everything that's happened to me.
No regrets, right?
I can't.
It's an important part of who you are.
I'm like thinking, God, what would have been a good thing to have warned him about? No, I would not be here unless every one of those things has happened. There hasn't been a single moment that hasn't brought some
I think
learning.
you have to change the question.
No, it's still a good question.
It's a good question, but you've now realised that you've stumped me totally.
No, I think you answered it in a roundabout way. On that same note, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
What's the best advice? You can see that I'm not good at these last minute
You
questions.
must have worked with
You
some
said be the
interesting
change a
people.
lot. I think that's spot
Be the
on.
change,
You wanna
definitely.
see-
But I didn't meet Gandhi. He didn't give it to me directly.
No. Okay. Yeah, that's true.
The best advice. Carry a knife. No, that's a joke. That was a joke. That was a
That
joke.
if you get mugged in South America?
No. Best advice.
Ayahuasca give you any?
Yeah, actually, this is.
Don't have sex from that Colombian
No.
guy. Was that no?
Yeah. It all sounds so cheesy enough, but
Drop it.
I can't actually pick something out.
That's right. You don't
Go
have to. Last one is to the 20-year-old that's listening out there that's watching you, watched your career and stuff that I don't know, wants to be like Bruce Parry one day, who I don't know, wants to go out there and make a difference, make
That's
these
me.
films,
Give me
make these
some.
shows. Maybe it's Tim. What advice do you give them?
I do get asked that a fair bit. It's just really go inside and find that thing that drives you and that feels right deep down. But make sure that you're being of service, that it is for the benefit of others. That these things will all come to you, but just really always try to be thinking of others as you do it. It's like try and...
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
more
just-
strength in that. You
I
feel a
think
lot
so.
stronger when you feel like you're serving something else than just doing it for yourself. It's like, whether it's a divine entity overseeing it, but I think, yeah.
Yeah, because I get, I get people asking me stuff all the time, and yeah, I think that if you're just always trying to, be of service to the widest thing that you can possibly be of service to, then whatever that is, then that tends to always work out best for you in the long run.
So if you're just being of service to yourself, then you're probably not doing the right thing in the long run.
Well, I think that if that's your drive, if you want to just be on TV, or if you always want, then you probably won't go as far. But if you're really doing it, if you can really see people when they've got a cause, and that cause is something bigger than themselves. That every facet of their being emanates a different shine. It's like their drive is different. They glow and shine in a different way, and I think that you can really spot that. It's because actually that's what gets them up in the morning. It's not because I'm going to get a bigger house. It's because this really matters. I can really make a difference. It's really it's going to perhaps help other people in some way. And it's not in a preachy way, just somehow, however you want to do it, but just think of how it's going to affect other people, and that is a beautiful drive to have.
You mentioned someone wants to be on TV. Do you not miss being on TV? Is part of you not like being the TV presenter?
I don't miss doing it, and I don't miss. I still get. I still feel very much part of the public domain. So, no, I don't miss it at all. I kind of actually am a bit in fear of it coming again. It's always actually terrifying when a new thing comes out, because I have no idea how it's going to be received, and I always try and challenge myself and break a new barrier, and this is this is like completely, I've flailed myself to the world. I've completely opened myself in this particular production, and it's like and revealed parts of me that are distasteful and a very much more raw perspective of me, rather than the glossy BBC character that you see, which is terrifying. But it's also beautiful, because that's that part of the image, the ego, that has been reduced again. And so that is very important for me on this journey of reduction, but terrifying as well. It's like, well, actually, yeah, you did see me do that. It's like really ugly, and we're going to put it in because that's part of the process.
Yeah, it's got to be real. It's a bit liberating too, because I guess once you own everything about yourself, then you're kind of at peace with the world, because like they know everything, so you don't have to hide anything.
Totally, but it's how hard is that? We look at some people who really are expressing themselves from their truth, and it's a bit distasteful at times. But actually, like, wow, absolutely is no filter expression of their inner being, and that's so nice. But so many of us have that fear. I'm the same. It's like, oh, well, there's a little bit of you that's looking at yourself from the outside. It's like, it's just stopping me in my tracks from actually saying what I want. And in some ways that's good to filter, but often we do it too much. And also it depends on how pure that thing is inside. The reason that I stop back a little bit sometimes is because I used to find when I was less consciously just being myself, actually it ended up being a bit aggressive or a bit distasteful, because some of the demons are coming out. And so I'm kind of scared to do it again, because I've had that history of not being happy with the result. But maybe now, having sort of harmonized myself a little bit more, I will be able to remove the filter and express myself. But it's scary, because we like to be liked often. And I certainly was guilty of that. And so who knows what an unfiltered Bruce Parry would be like, but
it's tricky, because ego ultimately gets things done, and then you try to be egoless, but then it comes back because you want to put out a quality piece of work.
It's all about choosing them, I think, and having different personalities, choosing it in different scenarios. Yeah.
I mean, you have an ego that makes you produce good work and stuff that you're proud of, and you want to do this.
Yeah, and you need a filter to be aware of what other people perceive your stuff as, so you know what to try and hit. But at the same time, there is such a strength in the purity of just your own thoughts or your own ideas coming out and not having any filter. But you're right, then it can come out in the form of demons. If you've got some within you, then it may come out less positive. But I guess if you can purify yourself through ayahuasca and other things, and then access that creative element and mix with your soul, which gives you your passion and intrigue in life, you can, really throw up some art. And that's
something to aspire to. That is.
I can't wait for. I'm so glad. Like I just assumed when you were coming on that this quest was going to be a lot of a personal quest, not only and also a quest to kind of deliver a message. But I think people are going to be fascinated to like ride along with you, because if you think about the best documentaries we've seen, usually it's someone exploring something, and you can see the way that they're conflicted with what they're seeing. It's not just a presentation to you.
And immersionism is really the best style of journalism, or to make anyone see something instead of just telling it from a distance. They get to live it as you.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of street cred. Makes it legit. How do people, learn about the film or support the film or get in touch with you, or is there a process?
I'll come back. I'll come back here and tell you all about it when we're ready.
Can't wait, man. We'd love to do that for the premiere.
Please call me there again. Can I be the co-host?
That's awesome. You're on Twitter at Bruce Parry. You tweet occasionally.
I tweet
right?
very occasionally, yeah. We have a website, Quest, themovie.com, which will probably be up and running, but it isn't yet. So that will come at some time in the future. But we'll bang the drum when the time is right.
Okay, so we'll just send you our positive energy in the meantime.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for being here,
Brian, Tim. Thank you. Thank you both.
It was fantastic.
Sorry, I didn't answer your questions, man.
No, it's okay. I've had so many different responses, but sometimes no responses.
That's an answer in itself.
Well, you're being overly sweet, but maybe I'll think of something in the.
I'm not as bad as people make out. Bruce was like, "All right, you're gonna ask me some hard questions." But did I ask any hard questions?
Not in the slightest. No, when it's descriptive, it's fine. It's always favourites I can't do.
Oh, favorites.
It's like best, worst, favourite. It's like
favourite shouldn't exist. It's different.
I stumble
different
on
things
them
are good
every
for
time.
different times.
Yeah. Timothy, what's going on with you? What's up with you for the next year?
I'm cracking on with the flow content till Christmas, and then next year I'm fully trying to this kind of direction with the whole spirituality, the holistic approach to health, and trying to help kids. Because the hardest thing is the older you get, the longer your condition, there's a lot more tangled stuff, so you need to untangle, so I'm trying to hit the kids younger, eat the fruit and vegetables, keep physically active, play. When teachers tell you grow up, that's absolute bullshit. Keep playing, enjoy your life, adventure, be who you are, and I want to try and get that across. I'm making content. I made a yoga video in Santorini. I'm making a calisthenics video coming out, and then I want to do a lot of talking on consciousness, on nutrition, on mind nutrition, on the
I love it, man. Watch this space.
Yeah, man.
Bruce.
I can feel it.
I'm telling you.
It's emanating.
Yeah, ever since I first met Tim, I'm like, watch this space. I like the fact that you're evolving. A lot of people would stick with what made them famous. It's just like parkour and free running for you, but you're happy to kind of move on, even though you don't know where you're going.
I'm already moved on. Yeah, I'm
all right, I'm feeling your vibe.
I'm enjoying the journey right now, man.
Dude, it's all good. Thanks for being here. This same conversation wouldn't have happened without you. So thanks for being here. And it's been really good, Bruce, to meet you. So best of luck with that. We did some filming earlier, so who knows? We might be part of your movie.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? So wishing you all the best. If you're listening to us on iTunes and you want to see everyone's good-looking face in beautiful lighting in a new format, come visit us on YouTube, channel London Real TV. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. If you want to help out, send me an email. And it's all good. Our tagline here is it's about the journey. Bruce personifies that. I wish you...
Oh, he does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, you are starting to as well. So, enjoy the journey, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
This week, London Real presents Adam Scorgi, the producer of The Union, the business of getting high.
Stop. Watch The Union, then we'll have a rational discussion. But don't argue with me until you've learned some facts.
Marijuana is just a weed, and marijuana is worth more ounce for ounce than gold.
You're the pot guys, right? We did a pot film. right? That was thought-provoking and entertaining, but that doesn't make us pot guys.
Now he brings you the culture high.
Things don't add up, they don't work. We can't just keep banging our head against a brick wall and expecting it to change. We have to start looking at alternative models. What those are, who knows?
The Culture High is the documentary that will tear into the very fiber of the longest fought war of our time.
This Sunday, London Real presents Adam Scorgie, The Culture High.
The only thing that really seems to make sense is that none of this makes any sense.